we are excited to begin this hour welcoming another VFL to the show. Former University of Tennessee offensive lineman, former Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman as well, Ramon Foster on the radio each morning on 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. Ramon, great to have you on the show. I told you, we got to get some offensive linemen some love, especially after the Titans took one last night with all the receiver talk you can imagine is going on today after last night.
Man, you know what? It's not our problem, man, that all offensive linemen are more coveted now, you know?
Yeah.
We live in a decent world now where the bigs can get more than a pat on the back. We're top 5 these days.
Yeah, well, and now it's the tackles, though. We got to get the interior guys more love, too. That's part of my objective. But the Titans last night, I'm curious what you thought there. JC Latham from Alabama is selected. Is the thought to move him to the left side? What do you think about his skill set and the coaching he'll have to try to get him ready as quickly as possible?
Man, first and foremost, I thought the 5th and the 7th pick should have switched. I felt like the Chargers needed a right tackle, and JC Latham would have fitted, and the Titans needed a left tackle, and that would have fitted. But Harbaugh is going to do and establish his team the way he wants to. The way I feel about JC Latham is this. As Vols fans, we saw his body of work. We saw he's capable of. He's a big athlete, and here's the thing that's super interesting about him and the entire tackle class this year is this. Those dudes, man, are like 330, 320, 340 plus, and some of them are running 5 flats, 5-1s. That tells you the type of athlete that these guys are now and what you gotta have to compete in today's world of having bigs that can move people. His skill set to me is this. He moves people well in the run game. He's aggressive. Got strong hands. He uses them very well. And that somewhat what gets him in trouble sometimes, too, is the fact that he can latch onto a human being and not make them move anymore. And that's where some of his holding penalties and stuff like that have come into play. Hearing him talking how he broke down why he didn't move over to the left side was understandable to me. They ended up having Evan Neal before him, and after he got there playing right tackle, they ended up getting Caden Proctor and just kept him over on the left side. I think he's what the Titans need. He's more than capable of moving over to the left side. I'm a guy, of course, we go all the way back to the Dave Clawson offense. We flip sides in games. You had to be able to play right and left in that style of offense. And guys who are moldable type of guys who want to learn, guys who are those type of athletes are capable of doing that. I don't think it'll be a big issue for him to go over to the left side as it pertains to the Titans needing a left tackle. Rand Carthon, their GM, said he's their starting left tackle now moving forward. So when you say those things out front like that, that just lets you know that the scouts, the offensive line coach, the offensive coordinator, the GM, and the head coach all believe in the things that he's capable of doing. So you don't make that type of move with that type of need at left tackle if you're the Titans, if you don't believe that he can do it.
Another thing, too, Ramon, and tell me what you think about this. I mean, Bill Callahan is offensive line coach of the Titans. If he signs off on anybody, if you're a Titans fan, you should say, okay.
Yeah. No, Swain, that's the biggest thing right there, man. I had the privilege of being coach, and Mike Keith even brought it up this morning. VFL himself on our show was like, there are some guys that are really good offensive line coaches in this world. He mentioned Coach Foreman. I would tip my cap. Yes, Coach Foreman knows how to find offensive linemen, teach them up, and at least challenge them to be better players on the college level. Mike Munchak I was coached by, and the third guy is Bill Callahan. There's another one right now in Philadelphia. I'm not sure of his name off top, but he's another one of those dudes. When you have those coaches that understand how to get the best out of guys, then you have, and when you mix that with talent, the sky's the limit. That's all you're asking for coaches, right? Give me talent that I can coach up that's going to make me look better, too. And the Bill Callahan situation, man, apparently from the people that I've talked to around the situation, from day one, they wanted JC Latham. And as it pertains to how Joe Alt moved up, I think it's all about what you want in your room, the personality of the guys. And when you look at Joe Alt's tape versus JC Latham, is this. Joe Alt's one of those guys who just simply gets the job done. You look at it, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what we thought. But when you look at JC Latham's tape, I am going to compare it to Trent Williams, where you say, oh, okay, both are good, right? You look at, of course, some of the greats that come in. Munoz is very technical, right? Michael Munoz, very technical. Joe Thomas, very technical. Not going to punch you super hard or just have those crazy explosive plays. And then you have Trent Williams. And then you have Lane Johnson. Those are the dudes I think that they wanted to probably cater this Titans offensive line after as far as getting a tackle that was capable of moving people, but also setting and being able to just control the game and have some dancing bears on your offensive line. Excuse me.
Ramon Foster is with us. He's on the radio each morning on The Zone in Nashville, VFL, former University of Tennessee and NFL offensive lineman. It was very offensive heavy. The offensive lineman, wide receivers, 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks. What did you think of just the approach you saw from teams? What did that tell you about what teams are doing on day one of the draft within the league?
Man, it was fascinating. I thought for a moment, like, we were living in a dream or something, because nobody drafts that many guys. When you're taking the test in school and the answer's B, 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 and you're like, it can't be B again, and it's B again. That's how I felt watching the draft. Like, we can't continue to pick offensive guys, but I think that's just where the game is. In this new world of offensive power, of winning, right? In this new world of 7-on-7, this new world where even offensive linemen go to camps to improve their stock as far as recruiting. You live in a world now to where if we're going to win, if we're going to lose, we're going to lose in style. And I think that's when you look at this caliber of players that have come out offensively are just better than where the defensive guys were. Even a guy like Liatu Latu ended up going to the Colts. He's a dude that you look at and say, I can see why he fell. He was projected to be a top 10 pick, but the neck issue is what bothered him as it pertains to a guy like JC Latham, who has some deficiencies, right? But you say to yourself, I feel better about him helping my offense score to help us win games better than I do a defensive guy that I have question marks about that I may not get the immediate results from. You can build longer with these guys offensively, and it's more natural to them. The defensive players do have a role in all of football. You say what you want to about it, but you're able and capable of winning championships because you have a solid, and I'm talking about a very solid defense. That does matter. Who can get the most stops? But today's world of offense, from high school to college to the NFL, I think a lot of coaches are able to relate to that more than they ever have before. So it ain't a matter of, hey, defenses are taking a back seat. No, it's just that when you run across these offensive playmakers from Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Roman Dunze, and the list goes on, I feel like the way they're being evaluated, they're more of a can't miss than saying Jarrett Verse is going to do good in the NFL. What does that look like, right? If we're comparing one to the other, as opposed to Michael Parsons, who still went out of the top 10, and you had to see it to believe it. You actually believe these guys will make an impact offensively way before a defensive guy is. But there's 2 guys that somewhat shocked me, and that's Bo Nix and that's Michael Penix Jr. Didn't see those 2 offensive guys going as early as they did, though.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you have any head-scratching picks in the first round? Those 2 would be the ones that you would mention?
Yes, and for the life of me, y'all, you know how you meet somebody and it's like, man, I'm gonna give you a piece of candy for $1, right? Mm-hmm. And then they end up taking the $1 back from you. That's what I feel like Kansas City did to Buffalo. Yeah. Like, why are they doing business with the Buffalo Bills when they also need a wide receiver too? That guy was going to be there. Maybe they just wanted to reposition themselves and say, hey, go get your guy and give us something to help us out too. I couldn't understand why they will be doing business to a team that's continually beat them and put them out of the playoffs. Xavier Worthy going to Kansas City. If you watch football and you know the time that he ran and the fact that he's going to be with Patrick Mahomes, you probably just said, well, we're probably just going to have to just put Patrick Mahomes in the closet and hope he doesn't come out and play football because they just loaded up another weapon. I couldn't understand that one. Those 3 were the ones that got me.
Yeah, can't you see Xavier Worthy burning the Bills in the 4th quarter of the divisional round next year, and Bills fans? Yeah. Like, wait a minute. Did we help Patrick Mahomes get that guy to throw the ball deep to?
Yeah, Josh Allen's gonna score a touchdown with 32 seconds left. Kansas City with no timeouts, and then Patrick Mahomes will throw a touchdown to Xavier Worthy. Yeah. And they'll change another rule for him.
It is another dude too, and they buried the lead in some of the interviews that was out there. But Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers moving up to get Xavier Legette. If you love him, take him, I guess. But it wasn't a reach because he's a playmaker. But I thought he'd be available for a later trade.
Kamal Hadden wasn't impressed, by the way.
He was. See what I'm saying?
I'm just saying, man. Kamal Hadden had it on lockdown.
And Darius Robinson, too, from Arizona, the Missouri edge or big D end, D tackle, whatever you want to call him. I think he's a hybrid out of Missouri. I love it for him because I think he is a playmaker. He can get there. I guess he fits their system. I don't think he's super quick, twitchy. He's long. He's rangy. I think he's a big D end that's going to end up playing a hybrid D tackle mode like a Calais Campbell or something like that down the line.
Ramon Foster with us. He played on the offensive line in the NFL, played on the offensive line at the University of Tennessee as well. And earlier this week, you were on campus, Ramon. You drove into Knoxville. You and Swain were over there to talk to the team. Anything you'd like to share about what message you wanted to get across and anything that might have stood out just being around the team for a little bit earlier this week?
Man, they are more business savvy than we are, and they have to be. Watching those guys operate around campus, and just how in tune they were to Swain and I's conversation to them, it seemed like they soaked up a good bit of it, man. And we didn't want to go too long because attention spans at the end of the day get a real short. But Nico sitting up front was huge to me. Him asking about Antonio Brown and Ben, and it was just super fascinating, man. And Swain and I both had a conversation with James Pierce, just at some VFLs about, making the main thing and how those guys want to be great, man. They got a lot of good stuff going on in front of them, for them, and Swain and I elaborated that to them that, hey, man, if you guys go do what you're supposed to, then everybody in this room eats. And that's on the field and off the field. And I thought that was super unique of them to just be engaged by it. Coach Heupel and his staff wanting that to be one of the conversations they had before they break for the summer. And everything's on social media. It was super cool, man. Caleb Webb was one of those guys that was very in tune to what we had going on. And he and I exchanged numbers and have been exchanging messages, man. I'll ask you guys, since you're in Knoxville, if you can, get him on, man. He wants it. He's super natural at it and a great talker, too.
Yeah, he did a good job on the locker room during the season. Came on, did some TV with us, and did a really, really good job.
Yeah, love to hear that. By the way, with the team coming out of spring, Ramon, we ask you offensive line questions a lot. On the flip side, besides Nico, I think the most talked about position group would be the defensive line. Pierce, what he can do, and then the number of players they have, the depth, the talent, all of that. From an offensive lineman's perspective, when you see that defensive line, how can that change the conversation maybe of what Tennessee can be this fall, the depth and the talent, the expectations that the coaching staff has of Tennessee's defensive line?
Man, as you mentioned, we know about James. We know about Elijah. We know about Big O. Some of the older veteran guys, right? Omar, Norman, we know about those guys. I was, you guys, one of the two guys I met when I walked in the building. Bison Lane, I know he's on the offense, but then David Hobbs. That is a big man child. If that's what you have playing behind Big O and Elijah and those dudes up front, it's sustainable is what I'd say. If they follow the lead and listen to Coach Garner the way they're supposed to, I know we brag about this offense and what it's capable of, but UT could get back to those days. If you continue to recruit well, where we're talking about Big John and Haynesworth and all of those types of guys that you say, Tennessee is putting them into the league, man. I think it could really reassert ourselves into being one of those D-line, like, intensive schools if those dudes go out and do what they're supposed to. I do think there is some youth that's needed as far as recruiting on that front. I know they got the kid out of Innsworth here in Nashville, Ethan. He's committed to the Vols. If that's what's behind them, man, I think they're in a really good spot. With a young quarterback, I'll say this with Nico. He's expected to do a lot. But if you got a defense that can support him and get the ball back as quick as that offense goes to, the sky's the limit for what this team is capable of doing. We know that offense can move up and down the field. Can they get stops? And if they're able to do that, you should compete well in the SEC this year.
Good stuff. Ramon Foster, VFL, former Tennessee offensive lineman. Anything for your former teammate, Swain, before we let him get out of here?
No, man. I mean, Ramon was great. Appreciate him coming in. One-day drive in and out. And no one loves Tennessee like Ramon Foster, man. So
I love that Tennessee's doing that. I think the team went to Nashville to visit with the Titans, and I think they've done some other stuff, and then have you guys come in too, Ramon. I love to see stuff like that.
Man, I did too. I enjoy. You guys know I'm orange and white all the way through. Swain even admitted that, hey, he's from Bama. And he chose Knoxville, Tennessee as his home, man. That says a lot about how Swain feel about the university, man. And I'm hoping we can continue to get some of those Bama guys up out of there, too.
Yeah, they got a commitment out of the state last week. Swain is a former Huntsville native, now a Knoxville native.
We got football and basketball out of there in the last 2 weeks.
That's right, yeah, Birmingham.
Yeah.
Committed basketball. So, yeah, Swain's trying to get as many as he can out of the state of Alabama up here into Tennessee. Ramon, thanks so much for the time. Thanks for hopping on today. I know it's a busy schedule right now for you. Always great to have you on the show.
Man, no doubt. Anytime, fellas. Just let me know.